Viewer discretion is advised.
What kind of person says shh? What kind of person says, no, don't you disgrace this family? You're the disgrace to this family. You are not the child. You are for making them be quiet about this.
Mandate.
Welcome to Mandate, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing's off the table. Tonight's guest hails all the way from Waihi in Aotearoa, New Zealand. The man has an amazing story, but also even an amazing testimony. And so a story of hope, resilience, and also courage, so to speak, Sam. But the man also has something to share, a message to share that's quite taboo in our nation, quite difficult to talk about. But he believes, as we do, that it's very important to talk about for the betterment of our men, but also for our nation and our people. Please put your hands together for this incredibly courageous man, Sam Troth.
Woo-hoo. Kia ora whānau.
Kia ora, me hei, kia ora koutou katoa, mausu. Sam, thank you so much for coming on, but I know when you kind of messaged us that your hikoi and so forth, and I'll get you to kind of explain and talk about a little bit more. But the whole message and the whole story about as to what you're doing today, please, brother, can you tell us? Because I believe it's a very, very important message, and a lot of us out there need to know this, and a lot of us out there are probably oblivious. Some people are oblivious to this message or to what's happening. So please, brother, if you can tell us your journey as to why you're doing this and why you're doing this important work.
Basically, when I was a young fella, I was sexually abused quite seriously by a family friend. And that went on from the age of 9 to about 13 and a half. As a result of that abuse, I had a really misled youth. So I was involved heavily in the youth justice system, boys' homes, and then as soon as I was old enough to go to adult prison, I went to adult prison, did 6 terms of imprisonment, and basically wasted my whole youth stuck in the system. It took a long time. It took till only a few years ago, really, before I started, seeking help and sorting myself out. It's one of those things, sexual abuse, like we accept that our women can be vulnerable and it can happen to our women and our girls, but, for us men, it's a lot harder for us to accept it. There's a lot more taboo around it, shame, embarrassment, etc. A lot of people feel that, there's a lot of loss of mana there because of it. And so it makes it hard for us men to speak out about it. But it happens so much in Aotearoa and to men and women. But, I just felt that I was doing counselling and I just felt that I needed to do more than just sit around and talk. I almost felt I was being selfish, just sorting myself out. So, I decided to do something a bit more. Yeah.
Bro, kudos to your mate, because I know it's very important. But you look at some of the stats and you talk about sexual abuse, and I can imagine some people listening to this or watching this, kind of shut shop, like, we can't be talking about that kind of stuff. And I can understand the taboo and the shame and all that kind of stuff that's involved in that. I can only imagine. But bro, tell us, because some of those stats, and you would know the inside and as to why you're doing the hiko and the work that you're doing. Tell us, because some of those stats are alarming, bro, because that's crazy.
Yeah. So we're pretty much on par for the worst sexual abuse stats in the developed world. So 1 in 6, or they're saying it's closer to 1 in 5 with new statistics or new reports and new things going on at the moment. But what we can definitely say ironclad is that it's 1 in 6 men by the time they're 18 will incur some sort of unwanted sexual violence against them. And when you look at our females, we get down to 1 in 3 over their lifespan will have some sort of unwanted sexual violence forced on them, which is just, if you do the numbers, I worked it out on the 2021 census, or the last census we had, sorry, and that worked out to be 317,800 and something men. That was your 1 in 6, and that was men over 18. So, those are your 1 in 6 survivors. 317,000 people, men it's already happened to, and that's not taking into consideration the young men now that are 18 or younger. They're not coming into that figure. So if we added that figure, if we had those numbers, it'd be even more alarming.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's so alarming, man.
Yep.
I wonder then what makes our country what makes the stats for our country so high?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I can't answer that, but I can make an assumption, or I can make some assumptions, educated assumptions, and one of them would definitely be the fact that we don't speak up about it. We don't talk about it as men here in New Zealand. We're pretty staunch. We don't really we're only just starting to get a bit we're just starting to get our heads around speaking about feeling down and checking in on our bros and things like that. And we're just sort of starting to break down those stigmas around suicide and sort of those stereotypes where men don't cry, big men don't cry, and all those sorts of things. We're just getting our heads around that, and then for us to try and wrap our heads around men being vulnerable enough to be raped and sexually abused is just so much, So I mean, our silence empowers these offenders or these predators, because their crimes are going unreported. So their offending gets worse and more escalated. They take more risks. They offend more often, and and they sort of and our silence protects that, which is the scariest thing. No one speaks up, so their crime goes unreported, and away they go merrily on their way to the next victim.
Yeah, it is. When you think about it, you put it in that way, you're thinking one in six, and that's just an amazing number in terms of how high it is in terms of the stats, and also for yourself, as a youngster, you said from the ages of 9, is it 9?
Yep, 9 to 13, just over 13.
And so you can imagine, because even now, so men are talking about being vulnerable. We want to be vulnerable and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things we can talk about that can make us vulnerable. But I can imagine when you talk about sexual abuse and being raped as a man, they can just kind of instant barrier kind of blockage right there. Like, oh, I want to be vulnerable. Oh,
yeah.
And so that's a hard one, because when you talk about that, that's like people don't, like you said, I think early on, Sam. There's two reactions. People can say, "Oh, it's sweet, man. Let's talk about no, see you later.
Yeah,
I'm out of here."
Yeah. I've had a lot of different reactions. So I've been on this hikoi since the 24th of October. I started at the bottom of the South Island in Bluff, and I've made it so far to Auckland. So I've had this conversation thousands of times so far with random people in cafes and people at restaurants and things like that, and chatting with people at my accommodation places and things like that. And there is definitely two clear reactions, and that's one, an embraceful and loving reaction, and obviously that's a very woke and very open-minded person, or perhaps someone that's experienced it in their whānau. And there's been plenty of people that have been survivors themselves and disclosed to me straight after I've disclosed to them. And the other reaction is sort of a wow and a step back, a sort of okay, sweet, well, here's your room key, see you later, or okay, here's your coffee, see you later, because it is a hard one. It's a real hard one for people to get their head around, especially when you're standing in front of them going, hey, this is me, this is what happened. They're sort of, they don't know how to deal with it,
Jeez, man.
Yeah. It's cool that you're able to speak about it so openly and so truly from your own experience. You mentioned, there being a point, being able to find help. Can you talk us through a little bit about that process? Because obviously you must have internalized it a lot yourself.
Yep.
But what was it like getting to that point where you're like, okay, I need, now this is the time where I need to speak to someone else? What was that like? Because I've assumed a lot of people struggle. They get to that point, but that's
the point. They get stuck. You get stuck there for ages. I was stuck there for years. You search externally first. So your classic drugs, your alcohol, your all the other things to try and ease the pain or to to block out the thoughts or whatever. I guess my wife was the one that made me reach out. I didn't really have a choice. I got to a real dark place in 2019. And I sat her down and I told her where I was at and what I was intending to do. And she wanted me. She told me that I needed to give it to reach out for help and give that a try first. Because I was ready to tap out. If I'm honest, I'd just had enough. So I'd taken stress leave from work and I went and sorted myself out at a mate's down on a mate's farm for a month or two, and got my head right, and then come back and started counselling. So she actually initiated that. So that was all Mumsy. I think, without someone else making that call, it's real hard to make it yourself, you know. It's a hard call to make. But once you reach out, like, it gets easier every time. And then before you know it, you go from those first few sessions when you start actually talking about being abused, and you can't do anything but cry. And then before you know it, you're sitting in a room full of strangers, and you're telling them your story, and you're not crying, and you're getting up and you're holding other men, and you're hugging other men and stuff like that, you know, and you're making progress. You know, it doesn't take long at all.
Jeez. And like you said earlier on, Sam, a lot of these people have talked to you, and because the power in just kind of being honest and being authentic and sharing what's happened to you, that it's empowered other men to think, oh man, if Sam's gone through this, then maybe I can have this conversation with the brother. And so you're talking about across the board, eh? Not just
huge, huge. Like, it's a bit like addiction. Well, most mental illnesses know no boundaries, eh? You know, there's no demographic that suffers more than the other. You know, it doesn't discriminate. It comes right through from your upper class or your higher end of society, right down through to your lower socioeconomical groups. Like, it doesn't discriminate. So the men, the different type of people and the different walks of life that these men come from, that are reaching out, you know, right from gangsters to businessmen, literally, gang members to businessmen. That's literally your spectrum, you know.
Oh man, because you mentioned some guys you were, I think you had a hui somewhere, and some of these guys like, oh man, you shared a little bit about or someone shared your hikoi and the work you've been doing, and said, oh man, yep. they felt empowered and felt safe to talk to you.
Absolutely, yeah, that was awesome, you know. And I mean, I went on before I started my hikoi, I went on a stag do with a good bro and a whole lot of men I'd never met. And on the Saturday we were they were all drinking and getting ready for a good old fashioned night, and I said, oh, I'm just gonna go for a bit of a stroll, and we have to. I said, I'll walk to town and back, and they go, fucking town's like 7 k's away. I said, yeah, sweet as, I'll be back in a few hours. And they were like, what the? So I got back, and they were like, my bro had already sort of filled in a few of the brothers about what I was up to, and then I was, you know, held a space at the table with everyone, and I said, oh, this is what I'm up to, you know, rah rah. No, cheer. And I was like, everyone had me on Instagram, and you know, followed me up. And then one of the bros was real into it. And anyway, we had a good time that night in town, and then we went home, and the bro, this other fellow, grabbed my phone number and he disclosed to me that night, you know, he said, fuck, that happened to me. You know, and he said, you've inspired me. I'm going to tell my family. I'm going to tell my partner and my children. You know, my ex-partner, you know, the mother of my children, I'm going to tell her, I'm going to, you know, he's like, I'm just going to tackle this head on. And he's the bro that actually gave me a ride here today. He come up here and hung out with me yesterday and today. So, you know, it's just like, you know, and he's just a tradie. He's just a tradie from the Waikato, you know. He's not a bad fella, and he's not a blue collar guy either. He's just a normal dude, you know. So it was cool. It doesn't discriminate, eh? It's right across the board, bro. It affects everyone. Yeah, or, you know, there's someone right now, everybody that's listening to this knows someone, and if they don't, they do, but that person just hasn't felt the courage to tell them, you know.
Jeez.
I was curious, I was just thinking of this concept between healing and forgiveness. And I wonder if, one, can you ever truly heal from going through something as traumatic as that? Or is it kind of an everyday battle, it comes and goes type of deal?
It's an ongoing thing, eh, bro? Like, you can't undo it, eh? You can't, and you can only sort of tool yourself up with the right gear to battle it when it comes up. Like, it's always going to be there. You can't change it. It happened. You know what I mean? But you got to get it to a place where you're good with it. You know, where you're good with it, and turn it into something else. You know, whether that's you know, might give you a bit of grunt in the gym. So you might be going to the gym and smashing the weights, you know, and using that as a motivation, you know, and that, you know, channeling that negative energy into a positive outcome. Or you might use it, you might do some fighting training, you might get in the ring and you might smash some fellas over and use that as your motivation. Or for me, I want to help heal. I want to raise awareness. I want to empower other men. I want to talk about this until people are sick of hearing me talk about it, basically.
Yeah, bro. I think that's so cool, Sam, because from the get go, brother, when I was like, "Hey, what's up, cuz? Hey, cuz," and I can tell we can obviously glean your passion around in this kōrero.
Yeah.
And also the hikoi, because if anything, the hikoi is really about you. I think you mentioned somewhere in an article that it's this is your healing process. The hikoi, being up to walk from the South Island to all the way to the Cape, to the Cape, and say, man, it's healing. Describe for us. What do you mean in terms of the healing for you? In terms of walking,
like. Man, have you ever walked for hours on end by yourself?
I've tried a few times.
Yeah. When you get left in town, nah. Yeah, damn, no more taxis, eh, guys?
Walk the better way.
Yeah, to get to work, eh? It's on so many different levels, you know. You're embracing all the elements for one, you know, whether it's the rain, the wind, the sun. You know, your smells, the things you're looking at. You know, when you're in the car and you drove past a maunga or something, you look at it for about 3 seconds and then you got to break your neck to look at it. When you're walking, bro, you can see it in the distance for hours. You're walking beside it for hours, like the desert road, walking beside the maungas for hours. And then right at the end of the day, you just got to turn your head a little bit and they're still right there, you know what I mean? And it's almost unexplainable. It's like a real spiritual feeling, you know, and you've got time to just think about things and process things and have some arguments with yourself. And, you know, I've had some cries, I've had some yells, I've caught myself just like laughing and talking to myself kind of thing. Like I've just a whole lot of time to process, bro. Whole lot of time to process, you know, and appreciate things, you know, like, just, you know, walking along the road and I might see a bit of a stream running through a paddock and, I'll jump over that fence and go stroll down, sit next to that stream and just, gee, I wouldn't have even seen this if I was in the car, you know, and then got nowhere else to be right now and I just lie down, look at the clouds, pull a bit of an energy bar out, smash that back, do a little post and away I go again, you know. Stopping and taking photos, you know, seeing birds and tuis and fantails and just all that sort of shit. It's just, it's another level, eh, you know. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a real, although I'm just walking up the road, it's a real sort of spiritual feeling, eh? Yeah, it's pretty buzzy. Yeah.
Especially when you're around nature, I can imagine your wairoa.
Yes.
It's spiritual. It's like, it's just kind of like...
You're fully grounded, bro. You're just in tune. You're just, and you're loving every moment, you know. You're talking to the birds when they fly past and shit. If you check out my Instagram, I talk to the cows quite a lot too.
Bro, me.
Man, yeah, I can imagine how amazing that must be to just disconnect from the world. You know, you're not having any time pressure. And I guess that's something that a lot of us, we just forget to do, to unplug and like go outside and like enjoy nature and just look at nature and the signs and what it's trying to tell us, because you know there's learning and there's messages there. So I think it's really cool that you've been able to do that. Have there been any sort of surprising revelations that have come to you on your journey, that maybe new discoveries?
Surprising revelations. Yeah, that it's not as hard. One thing, it was a bit of a crack up thing, really. So, like, when I started the page in that day, I was like, because I've never been on social media. It was kind of, if I'm honest, it was one of those things. It was to do with my abuse. You know, I was scared my offender would be out, or my perpetrator would maybe see me on Facebook or see me on thing and be able to stalk me and see what I'm up to and see my family, whatever. It was stupid. It was just a thing that I had in my head. Anyway, so I started social media and like, I was like real, like, fuck, am I going to have to like put my face on there and I'm going to have to talk and like, and I was so nervous. And now it's like, it's fucking sweet, man. Like, it's like, yeah. So I guess one of my revelations was that it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, you know, like there's not, you know, like each interview I do or each time I tell my story or each person I meet, you know, it just gets easier and easier and more fluid, you know, and I feel better every time, and I feel, I don't know, like almost like boosted, you know, like like sort of like energy up, level up every time I yarn to a different group of men or a different outfit or whatever. I feel like I'm just leveling up, you know. It's mean. Yeah, it's mean. And I thought, I didn't think I'd get blisters like my mate said. There was another thing. My bro was like, you're going to get mad blisters, cuz. And I was like, I'm not going to get blisters, bro. I'll get sore legs. I won't get blisters. Man, I got big blisters, bro. I got blisters on my blisters.
But this part of the cause here. This part of the cause, man.
Do the money, get the blisters.
Get the blisters, man. To get the blisters. Yeah. But kudos to you, brother, because it is. Because, it's even like when I think about it, like, man, it's hard to talk about it. And I was like, man, it's just... But it shouldn't be. This shouldn't be the case here.
It shouldn't
Sam.
be. It shouldn't be.
the
You
case.
know, like if we're talking about, okay, for example, at my kids' high school, so they do like a rainbow week where the children can come and express themselves in any which way they feel. Obviously my kids just dress up normal, but children, they want to express themselves and they feel that they identify with one of the sides of the rainbow community, because there's quite a few of them. They can go to school and they can do that, and that's awesome, So if we can support them in that, and we can have these open and frank conversations around suicide and stuff, I think we really need to dig deeper and start having these real talks around trauma from childhood. These main things, that ultimately shape us. Like my mate was telling me the other day that until you're 7 years old, you're a complete product of your environment. So the child will act or the child will become whatever they are around. They're a blank canvas. And if they're not in a positive environment, or if they're in a positive environment but there's negative elements to that positive environment, then it's going to have everlasting effects. So the sooner we deal with that and we talk about these things, the sooner we can help people heal. There's no point in waiting for someone to be in their mid-40s with 2 failed marriages, 5 kids to 2 different women, and, a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction and failed employment and all these other things before we go, shit, bro, what actually went wrong 25, 30 years ago, cuz? We need to be sort of taking the fight further to the youth, and speaking to our youth. And the more I say as adults and as men speak, the more our youth will see us doing that and see it as the norm and think, oh, if the uncles are doing this, then we can do this. But we've got almost, I personally think we've got an obligation. We've got an obligation because we can't be sitting in the same position we are in another 30 odd years with our kids. Having these same problems and trying to make these same changes within their communities around mental health and around childhood trauma. We've got a real opportunity right now to make a change. And I believe that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, man. Hard out. Yeah,
that's powerful. You mentioned earlier about your perpetrator, and I was curious about is forgiveness a factor? Like, is that something that you kind of think about, or is it on the table, off the table?
Shit. Oh man, we might have to delete the podcast. We'll keep it real on this, but nah. I don't know, bro. I don't know. For me, no. Forgiveness isn't on the cards. Nah, it's not. But at the same time, it's in a place where I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? I'm not going around every day going, oh, I'm going to kill that motherfucker. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's negative energy. I don't need that energy in my life. Doesn't mean that that's not what I think or feel at the end of the day, but I just don't think and feel that all day, every day, I try not to focus on that negativity. Every dog has their day and he'll have his, I guess, but, it's a tough one, and I can only imagine it gets tougher when it's a family member involved as well. That's when, I've heard some real horrible stories, and it just causes those huge rifts through the whānau, and it's a tough one, religious people say, the Bible, you must forgive, and I don't know, maybe for some people they can get to that. I've never actually contemplated it's a question, bro, because I've never actually sat down and said, can I forgive? It's a tough one, eh?
All good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, no, man. We appreciate your honesty, bro. Because the last thing we want to do is, of course I'll forgive the guy. He's my brother. He's my friend now. No. But it is.
I guess everyone's experience will be different as well, though. You know what I mean? There's sexual violence comes in so many different forms. Sexual abuse comes in so many different forms from so many different with so many different elements. Do you know what I mean? So, I guess in some ways, in some situations and with some elements, for some people, forgiveness could be a element.
Yeah, but I love the fact that you said, "Hey, I'm not going to let that be the kind of. I don't need that negative energy.
Nah,
I want to ponder on that and think about that. Otherwise, it's going to bring you down."
Nah, then that's it, bro. Like, and that's where it gets to. You just fester in that negativity, bro, and you get stuck there. Like, what do you? Yeah, like.
Well, how many brothers or men are kind of like you're saying, who are in that kind of predicament and they're all that kind of thinking of just negative, and because it'd be interesting, Sam, are you able to kind of pinpoint or picture or kind of like, oh man, I know that kind of symptom in a kid or a man. Like I've seen this before.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. So like, I can pick up on things, bro, that I think are a bit abnormal, a little bit like warning bell for me, you know, with other adults, the way I may see adults interact with children. That's not to say that there are any ill intentions there, but it's just that my vision is 20/20 when it comes to you know, when I see any adult interacting with any child, I'm like, what's this going up to? Oh, sorry, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's like, you know, like I'm automatically suspicious, and that's a side effect of being abused. You know what I mean? I do find it. I do check out how the brothers are how the brothers are interacting with my kids. You know, I do keep an eye on that, bro. I do check. You got a male teacher. Oh, yeah, what's he like? Oh, yeah, I'm coming along to the gala. Let's check him out. Whatever, you know, like I am aware of that. And also the same in children. Like, like it's like all these bad little dudes that are out there at the moment. Like I can guarantee you at least 2/3 of them, bro. Guarantee you, they're screaming out for help. Yeah. You know, some of them are misled, and there are those exceptions of people that are just born badasses. You know what I mean? Like, there's some bad dudes out there, but you know, there's a lot of good dudes that do bad stuff, and there's a lot of good dudes doing bad stuff that had some real bad stuff done to them. You know what I mean? I know for myself, as a youth, like it was just violence and property damage and just anger. You know, like that's what I was putting out there. You know what I mean? And I was hanging out for someone to ask me what was wrong, but no one did, you know. So I definitely see those symptoms or those signs that, you know, there's more to it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, every boy can be a bit mischief, you know, like a bit of a bloody, sure, rock at that window, let's run away. Yeah. But, you know, when a kid's bloody, you know, when all his mates are all at home tucked up in bed at 11 o'clock and he's 13 years old out stealing a car and backing it through a shop, or he's, you know what I mean, or he's jumped out the bedroom window and he's down at the park, rather sleep in the bushes than sleep at home, something's not right, you know. Or if he's using heavy drugs at a young age, you know, or even things like solvents and stuff like that. Like why is it's a little kid, man? He should be on the swings playing or making a hut or shooting hoops with the bros or playing touch or whatever it may be, but shouldn't be in the bushes huffing glue or shouldn't be robbing a shop to go get some dope or whatever his thing is. You know what I mean? Yeah, bro. You know, shouldn't be using drugs. Shouldn't be. Yeah, you know.
Jeez.
And that's the way I see it, bro. Is that, you know, it's. Sometimes they are just little badasses, but a lot of the time I think they're screaming out for help, bro. Yeah. They got no positive role models. They got no love in their life. They got no one to turn to. They're just trying to get some attention. Look at me, you know.
Yeah. Man, and look at you now. I mean, I'm just thinking, I can really see the connection now between the raising the awareness for everyone and everyone being more aware of recognizing those symptoms and those signs and being able, and if we can recognize the signs, we're in a better position to like initiate those conversations and
absolutely
begin that process of healing, acknowledgement, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely, bro. You know, like it's even like I shared a post the other day. I can't remember who created the reel, but it was around giving people, forcing children to give adults hugs. So, you know, you might be at a family event and one of the kids, I don't want to fucking give old uncle such and such a hug. Give your uncle a hug, boy. Yeah, you go over there and you give uncle a hug. Well, that's not on. Why are we making children? Nobody should be forced to show love if they don't want to. And this little reel I shared was Nana. And Nana standing there and she goes, they go, give Nana a hug. And the boy goes, no. And she goes, high five, boy. And he's, yeah, boom, gives Nana a high five. Next one gives her a high five. Next one gives her a hug. Sweet as, half an hour later, the kids leave or whatever, they all give her a hug. And the message behind that was that children don't need to be forced to show love. You know, you don't need to... They don't need to be made to give a love. And it reminded me of the movie Once Were Warriors. You know, and it's give your Uncle Bully a kiss. Give your fucking Uncle Bully a kiss. You know, and look at that scenario. And it is that same thing. Like if our children don't want to share their body, don't bloody make them, you know, or don't, you know, it's things like that. And people not understanding the awareness, not having the awareness, they might go, give your bloody uncle a hug or give your auntie a hug. You haven't seen her in 8 months. And that could be going, if you knew what uncle had done to me, you'd be punching him over right now. He wouldn't be here. But you know what I mean? So it's that whole, so automatically those just little subliminal things like that, they're making the children not feel safe because they're like, oh, fuck, I've got to. And then that's giving the perpetrator a weapon. Because you know, your old man told me you got to give me a hug, niece. Come sit on my knee. You know, hey, you know what Dad said. Don't want to make Dad upset. You know, it's. I know some people might be listening right now going, "Ooh, bro, you know, you shouldn't be saying shit like that." But those are the facts. You know, 9 out of 10 sexual abuse perpetrators are family members. That's the facts. This isn't stranger danger. This is almost like caregiver danger. You know, this is how it is. If it's not a family member, it's a friend of the family. You know, like. Random attacks are very, very, very minute amount of child sexual abuse. Very small amount. You know, different story when we're talking about rape and with adult women. Obviously, those sorts of randomized sexual attacks happen often. You know what I mean? But we're talking about children. You know, and 9 times out of 10, bro, it's the devil you know.
Jeez, it's interesting because you know, because I'm guilty of that as well. Sam, like, hey, give auntie and uncle a hug or kiss you, because you think it's family, it's my father, you know, there's no danger here.
Show auntie or uncle the respect. Show respect them by giving them. But hey, it can be a high five instead. Doesn't have to be, you know. And again, it's just like, why would we? So say if we met and me and my wife, you and your wife. And you said to your wife, okay, give the bro a hug. And she said, oh, I just met the bro. A handshake's fine. Yeah, you give the bro a hug and a kiss on the lips, babe. But you know what I mean, eh? Yeah. Do you know what I mean, eh? You wouldn't do that to mum. She should give you a slap. I know mum would. She'd be like, yeah, you made me kiss your mate, you out of it, fella. You know, but it's the same thing. So why do we do it to our kids?
Bro, that's so true, bro.
The other thing too, I've always believed that kids are super sensitive to like vibes. Like they can just pick up vibes. Yeah. Typically with my kids, like whenever we go, if they, you know, you're like, oh yeah, come on, and they don't want to go to you, I'm always like, what have you been up to? Or like, you know,
they're pretty
just
good
because I trust their,
bro. Yeah, their intuition.
Yeah, intuition. That's the one.
Bro. Yep. Like, cause I'm I see that too, bro. You know, like, definitely, like they are good judges of character, bro. And you will, those are the little things that, you know, by creating awareness, everyone will be aware around, hey, maybe uncle's got bad breath and that's all it is. Do you know what I mean? Well, do you know what I mean, eh? Do you know what I mean, bro? But maybe uncle doesn't have bad breath. Maybe it's something much different. You know what I mean? Or maybe they just are a withdrawn kid, or maybe they're in a shitty mood that day or whatever. But, you know, we don't have to read into it. Oh, shit. Yeah. There was 4 people this week that they didn't want to hug, right? Get the shotgun. We'll go smoke these fellas right now. You know, we don't need to read too much into it. But at the same time, you know, it's just one of those things to be aware of, you know?
Because it is, you're right. Because we need to be aware. Because you think it's whānau, family. Oh, no, all good. Yeah, give them a hug, auntie a hug, or uncle. You don't suspect anything.
Nah.
But like you're saying, in terms of a lot of our kids, the wairu, and they know, like, oh, something's not right here.
Yeah.
It pays to be aware, like, oh, okay, maybe just there's something to it instead of like, oh, flogging, just, oh, that's all right, all good.
Yeah.
But because you just don't know, I'm saying.
Yep, you don't, and you won't. You won't until it's done. And if you haven't done anything to stop it from happening, it's done and dusted. You can't take it back, you know. And then, you know, you're in a world of you're in a totally different situation then, you know. I mean, it doesn't take much to talk to our kids and explain to them how to keep themselves safe and explain to them that their body's tapu and this and that. And it's an awkward conversation. It's a fucking hard one, but we've got to have it because it's a lot harder one for them to come to you 10, 15 years later and tell you all this shit. And then where does that put you, you know? You know, like I can't imagine what it'd feel like, you know, having your child come to you and tell you that. And you know, be a tough one, you know? So I'd way rather the prevention than the cure conversation, you know? Right. You know, so as awkward as it may be, we've just got to talk to them. And like I've had this conversation with my kids and, you know, and it's just about being open and honest, you know, and just it's real simple, you know. It doesn't have to be all bloody technical and out with the exercise books and all the rest of it. It's, hey, Pretty simple. Your body's special. Your body's tapu. No one's to touch it. No one's to look. No one needs to see. Like even the other day, my niece, she comes out of the bathroom. So she lives with us. We have custody of her, or we are her guardians. Our niece and our nephew, little ones. She's 5 or just over 5. She comes out of the bathroom and she's got no clothes on, And I say, hey, hurry up and put some pants on. She goes, no. She takes off. She comes back out. She's still got no undies on. I said, darling, we don't want to see your bum bum. No one needs to see your bum bum. That's it. You need to cover it up now. You're a little girl. You don't run around with your bum out. And that's same with boy. If he wants to run around without his nappy on, no. Like if it's hot and all the rest of it, of course. But like. Just to those little things, like, hey, no, son, that's your no. Don't let anyone see your no. It's a special body part, Just little things like that, and you can slowly, they just you're just giving them small messages, but they're all adding up, And at the end of the day, then they know, and then someone asks to see their no, they're like, oh, you're not allowed to, no, or whatever, you know what I mean? Or, if you're telling them teaching them these little. Things as they come up, about keeping your body safe and people aren't allowed to touch and things like that, and there's no secrets and things like that, like just things like that, and they don't have to be this big one awkward conversation. Okay, this thing called sexual abuse, and no, it doesn't need to be like that. It's not that hard. It's real simple, eh?
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Because, and you're right, I like it, you say, you put it just real simple, just safeguarding our kids, really safeguarding them and doing it in a kind of natural, authentic way.
Yep.
But we could kind of get your thoughts as well, Sam, in terms of those whānau and parents, when you do kind of address the issue, they're like, oh, no, that's not true. You sweep out in the carpet, just hush, just shut up, shut your mouth, don't talk about this. Yep. You're bringing so much disgrace to our family, our whānau, and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know that's quite common.
That's real common.
For our people, for our Pacific and our Māori people.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at how special whānau is, you look at the marae, you've got your elders up there, you've got all these respected people, and you can't step it. Everyone's auntie, everyone's uncle, you've got to be respectful. You're in there doing the dishes, and then you're bloody, get away, respect, make the cup of teas and then piss off, There's all these different layers of whānau is so important and special and this and that. So how are you meant to out that fella that's sitting at the po, How are you meant to say, oh, that uncle, you know what I mean? How I can understand how hard it must be. But at the same time, you need to find someone else then. So if you go to say if it was me, and I go to my brother or my sisters and they say, nah, you're all shit. Okay, then I'll try mum. Nah, you're all shit. Dad, nah, you're all shit. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the police or I'm going to go to the bros. I'm going to go talk to the bros' mum. Because we've all got a bro whose mum we call mum. Cheer, mum. Some shit's been going down, You've got to find that. Someone's going to listen. If they don't want to listen, then fuck them. Literally, man. Then they're nah. What kind of person, when your child comes to you and says, this is happening to me, what kind of person says, shh? What kind of person says, no, don't you disgrace this family? You're the disgrace to this family. You are not the child. You are for making them be quiet about this. You know what I mean? There's no shame. There's no disgrace. The shame starts with the silence. That's where the shame is. And the other thing to consider is, if someone's coming to you with these claims, then you've got to take them as 100% for real, regardless. They could be coming at you telling that your partner of 30 years is abusing them. You know what I mean? You've got to take the child's side. Why would a child make that up? Have a look at the situation. Have a look at the scenario. And I have heard of, stories where people have made something up, there's an allegation and it's made up, I've done jail with fellas that have been charged for rape by a partner who was bitter, you know what I mean? And they've done real jail time for it. So it does happen, but the lies are a lot less than the truths, So if we it just makes it harder. We're just making it harder for everyone. For everyone that's in that position, we're just making it harder. It's just another obstacle we're throwing up. Or they might not believe me. Oh, there's another one. Fuck, that's 7 reasons I shouldn't say anything. You know what I mean? Jeez. And it's tough. It's tough. For me, it was a family friend. So, it was an employee at my dad's business, at my dad's work. So, there wasn't it wasn't like it wasn't a family member, so it didn't cause a family rift then. At the moment it has caused a family rift, and there is a divide in the family, and that's because of issues around me seeking my closure. You know, some people want to come to the table, some people don't. That's fine. They don't want to come to the table, see you later, you can't come again. Doesn't worry me, bro. You know, you carry these things and you worry about, oh, how will such and such feel about this, and how will so and so feel about this, you know. Like how they feel. Who cares? It's not yours to carry. Give it back to them. You know, the caregivers that were responsible for you when you were a child, give them all back to them. Put it on them. They should be the ones going, fuck, I should have done this. Fuck, I should have done that. Why didn't I do this? How did I drop the ball? Why didn't I see this? You shouldn't be the one going, oh, I don't want to make them feel stink. I'll carry it all. I'll carry all my trauma. Plus, I'll carry the shame and the guilt for them as well. Nah, give it back. You know, and if someone doesn't believe you, well, that's just you've got to find that. You know, if they don't believe you, then, you know, they're saying something about that person anyway, you know, regardless of who that person is to you in your life, if that's mum or dad or auntie or uncle, whoever's your caregiver, or whoever's your, you know, if that's your brother or your sister, and they don't believe you when you tell them that, yeah, it doesn't look like your fellas are that tight, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Damn.
Man.
It's just a couple of thoughts come to mind as you're speaking there. The first was, you know, because of the way that our cultures are set up, and you know, we put certain people, there's a hierarchy there, yeah. So then I'm wondering, I'm curious, and you know, you may not be able to answer this, but then I wonder, are our cultures, like, do we perpetuate the negative statistics worse than other cultures because of the way that our culture's set up and traditions and hierarchy?
Yeah, like I've got a whole lot of stats that I've been working over at the moment around suicide statistics, and some domestic violence statistics, and they do the suicide and the domestic violence do look worse in the Māori and Pacific Island communities. So I would only assume that you know, you could say the same about the sexual abuse as well, you know, unfortunately. But again, you know, like it doesn't discriminate, you know what I mean? Like it's widespread. It's right. It's just as rife in the church. You know what I mean? You talk about boys being sexually abused. Most people, the first thing that pops to their mind is the church. The choir boy, you know what I mean? That whole choir boy priest joke, you know, or that banter, you know, that's what pops to mind. So, you know, I guess the stats do indicate, as far as suicide and domestic violence go, the stats do look worse in the Māori and Pacific Island communities. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
But it is sad, Sam, because I can imagine someone trying to say, oh, okay, I'm trying to share to mum and dad or whoever the whānau member is, and then the instant dismissal, no, you can't talk about that. You can imagine these perpetrators, they can just carry on for years.
Yeah.
Years, and you wonder why didn't they get caught? It's taking like, what, 20 odd years, whatever.
Yeah, yep.
And that's why I really believe in your mahi in terms of speaking out and having this conversation, and normalising it. Imagine if we were able to talk about this stuff and become more aware of you know, just keep an eye on our family members or our kids and so forth. Imagine these perpetrators, there'll be the stats will just definitely go down.
Yep. Well, they have to. They have to, bro. You know, like we've got to out these fellas, bro. So it's got to get to the point where if someone's not getting involved in this conversation, why aren't you getting involved? Well, what side are you on? That's what it's got to get to. You know what I mean? We've got to be in these family groups and these and groups of workmates and groups of whatever, you know, sports teams, marae, you know, at the gym, whatever you're, you know, like, hanging out with the boys. If someone's not chipping into this corridor, why the fuck not? Why, you know what I mean, bro? If you're withdrawing from this corridor, why are you? If you don't want to engage in this, why aren't you? You know, if you're not having this corridor with your kids, why aren't you? You know, why? Why? It's all about protecting our children, this is all positive stuff. So if you want to have this positive conversation or do this positive mahi around awareness and empowering these children, then what do you want to do, bro? Because to me, that seems like a very dark intention or a very, 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 you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
not like we're talking about politics. I can't be fuck talking about that, you know, or it's not, you know what I mean, bro? We're not talking about,
sure.
We're not talking about is league or rugby better. We you know, like it's not Ford or Holden, You know, bro, there's not, you know, like there's only one side to be on, cuz.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you ain't on that side, well, what the fuck are you up to?
Bro. But how's support been? Because I'm hoping that people like jump on board straight away. Like, oh man, let's fund this. Let's just jump on board and support the brother.
Yeah, the support's
How's it
been,
been?
yeah, people have come through like heaps of support on social media and heaps of people messaging awesome messages and encouraging messages and all that sort of carry on. We went for a bit of sponsorship at the start. We got shot down, so we just funded this whole hikoi off the back of ourselves, and then started to give a little. And we've received some real awesome donations through that, and that closes up shortly. And we've got enough now to, well, we've just got to tighten the belt. I might not be allowed to get too many more eggs, Benny, but I'm still allowed steak for dinner, so that's good. I might just have to go back to some Weet-Bix for breakfast, but we pretty much got it covered. But overall, people's engagement in this has been pretty good. Grassroots, it's been really good. You know, Stony Creek, the clothing brand, or Stony Creek Huntwear and that hunting gear, yeah, they jumped on board and they have they provided me with some clothing, some apparel, which was choice, and they're supportive on that side. I'm hoping that they want to stay on with our future plans next year and moving forward. Sort of mainstream media haven't really. You'd think it'd be a story that'd be all over, you know, like. But now ice cream flavors are a bit more important for them, so that's a bit unfortunate. And then, I guess because of the taboo around it, a lot of people. I've reached out, man. Like I've reached out to a lot of celebrities and public figures, and haven't had a lot of luck at all with really any of them, to be honest. You know, I guess because I've never been on social media before, but I'm getting a quick understanding that people work hard to build a platform, and when they've got their platform, they need to control what content they put on there and what they don't. And although they may feel empathy for me, and they may feel you know, like righteous about my cause and that, I guess that doesn't necessarily reflect the fact that they can post my kind of content on their social media, you know. Which I guess was an illusion that I had, you know. I thought, oh, these bloody people, you know, I'll reach out to this fella, I'll reach, all your ex-All Blacks and you this and you that. And they can't even open their messages because they got too many followers to start with, you know. But, you know, some do, some celebrities have opened their messages and looked and done nothing, you know, not even replied. You know, others have and jumped on board as well, you know, and followed, which is awesome, you know. Yeah, so, but just, yeah, it's a bit, yeah, it's still a very, very taboo subject, you know. I'm sure if I keep banging my drum and chewing everyone's ear off with my kōrero, I'm sure in years to come, then I will be able to get some of these fellas to jump on board and come to some events or speak or whatever, you know, or, you know, do some guest appearances or whatever, what have you. But at this stage, yeah, it's just me.
Hey,
just me doing the mahi.
It's awesome, man. No, all it takes is just one, man.
Yeah, that's it, the way, bro. Yeah.
Hard out. Man, are there any sort of celebrities or people in mind in the future that you're like, you know, you'd love to partner with in terms of, you know, raising awareness? Who's your ideal kind of candidate for that?
So let him proud of
shit, I don't know, man. The brother Monty's following.
Yeah,
shit,
nice.
he'd have some pulling power, bro, at some of these, you know, because I'm trying to get into the high schools. So that'd be amazing, pulling up to some of these South Auckland high schools with Monty Beetham on board. You know, that'd be tough. But you know, like, yeah, anyone, bro, anyone that has a reach, anyone that has their own sort of story of you know, of greatness behind them, you know, especially our sportsmen, you know, our youth look up to our sportsmen, you know, they really do, you know, like you've got your news, you know, you got your Mike McRoberts and your Paddy Gowers and all that sort of stuff, and people, they're cool, as an adult, they're cool, but as a kid, they're just the whole fella on the news. But you know, your rugby players, your rugby league players and stuff like that, those and your hip hops, you know, your hip hop artists and things like that, those are who the young fellas are thinking are cool. So, you know, anyone from that sort of background would be awesome, you know. Yeah.
That's cool now, and I think that's the beauty of networking, Sam. You know, we can kind of help each other and collaborate together, and just kind of push the mai forward and really do justice to it.
Yep.
And because the thing what you're doing is it's not an easy feat. You know, people think, oh yeah, she's just walking up to the bro. You think about South Island all the way from the South Island all the way to the Capes, like bro, that's just some crazy.
I looked 2,100 kilometers. Yeah.
And I think one day you went 923 k's. I said, what the heck?
Yeah, no, I said no. My biggest day is 56.
Jeez.
But I think we did a two-day stage, which was what was that, 111 or something like that. We got another big one between I think is it Wellsford to Whangarei is that 90 something or something like, and then the Brenduin Hills in between there. Yeah, so we got a few tough leagues coming up as well, or one more big tough league coming up, but you know, just basically turning up and doing a marathon every day.
Pretty much,
pretty much, because doing a marathon Monday to Friday, bro, every day, and then having a day off and then starting it all over again.
Bro, and that's what I mean, because your passion, obviously your passion drives you. Because I'm just thinking there might be some days that go, bro, I'm just too tired. I don't want to get up anymore.
Yeah,
hey,
bro.
man, have a break today.
Yeah.
But obviously this may and obviously your personal experiences and the message around it pushes you.
Yep.
And so we if there was anything in terms of like, hey, what would you say to people out there who you think who should hear the kōrero or the message? What would you say to those people, those folks? Like, man, you need to hear this. What would you say in your own words in terms of like, come on, man, jump on board?
Oh, pretty much like, you know, like if you're a survivor out there and you're listening to this and you're living with your trauma and letting it control you and own you and control your relationship and your parenting and all, because it controls every aspect of your life. Like, if I can do it, bro, anyone can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just, and the other thing is if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the other kids that the fella's doing it to now. Because he hasn't stopped, or she hasn't stopped, you know, that offender, that perpetrator hasn't stopped, you know, so every day that you don't do anything about it is another day they're doing it to someone else, you know. If you, because I had someone message me and they reckon, I'll take it to my grave. And it was like, well, fuck, well, how many, until you're dead, how many more are going to be abused, you know, like, if that's your attitude, I'll take it to my grave. Well, how about you just go to the cop shop and out this fella? Or how about you go, how about you out him on a public platform, you know, on social media? Or how about you go and you confront him, or, you know, and then carry on wallowing in your addiction or in your negative behaviors, you know? But just do one good thing about it. Just out them, take the power away from them, you know. You know, it's once you break the ice, you know, once you start, it's easy. It's actually easy, man. It's sweet and it gets better every time, and it ain't shameful, bro. It's strong and it's staunch. It's fucking hardcore, bro. Like, you know, it's weak not saying anything. That's the weak way, like the easy way. Oh yeah, I'll just jump into the pipe, or I'll just jump into the bottle, or I'll just keep going to town every weekend and smashing random fellas over, or whatever it is, or keep doing crime. I'm badass, I'll patch up with this crew and I'll fucking... Nah, that's all weak shit. Address your shit and then go and do that if you still have to do that. But you know what I mean? Like, you know, because at the end of the day, that's the thing. Like, my biggest regret with this whole thing is that I didn't do that. And so I had an opportunity when I told my family when I was 18, 19, an opportunity then that I could have stopped some serious offending that was going on by this fella. He's in jail now, but 4 victims later that I know of, you know, that's 4 fellas that are going through the same shit I'm going through and will do for the rest of their lives, that could not have been going through it had my parents had done what was required and gone to the police and made the public aware of this guy, you know. Like, yeah, our justice system is fucked, and yeah, they're not going to get the lag they deserve, but let's just give them the shame. Let's let the world see them for the scum they are, and then let's see if they can babysit the neighbours' kids, or let's see if they can chime in on the work bros' kids, because they won't be able to, because they'll be a registered sex offender and everyone will know who they are, you know what I mean? So they won't be able to do anything but hide. And that's what we want them doing. We want them just hiding in their own shame. We don't want them fucking out in our community.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So none of that happens. None of that happens unless we take that first step, brothers, and we say, hey, fuck, you know, this has happened to me and this is who did it to me. You know, until then, you know, we're enabling.
Yeah.
We're enabling. Yep. So if we stay a victim instead of becoming a survivor, because that's how I look at it, you know, until you address it, until you stop all the negative, you are still a victim because you're living as a victim, because you're going, fuck, no, this happened to me, so that's why I'm a meth addict, or that's why I'm an alcoholic, or that's why I like beating up my missus, or that's why I'm a cunt to my kids, because this happened to me, so I can. Well, you're a victim. You know what I mean? So you can turn around and say, well, I've given up meth and I've given up the bottle, or I've stopped domestic violence in my home. I talk to my wife with respect, or I try to talk to my kids, or I'm trying to mend the damage that I've done, because now I'm surviving. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm taking the power back and I've given the shame away. I'm not carrying that shit. You know, so.
Awesome, bro. That's 100%, man.
I don't. You mentioned a little bit there about coming out and telling your family, and I'm curious about what their reaction was, and because there's a spectrum of reactions I can imagine, but I'm curious about what they thought in terms of you dropping this and coming up with the courage to say it, and then it's like for them hearing it for the first time. Yeah. How did they react? Because I imagine there's, gaslighting can be a thing.
It was a bit of a. So I got out of jail, and while I was in jail on that leg, it was weird. There was this chaplain, bro, and he saw me in the unit, and he was there to see one of the other brothers, and then he saw the bro, and that was sweet. And then the screws called me up to the we used to call it the dog box. Called me up to the dog box, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm fucking. The chaplain wants to see you, and I was like, oh, chaplain, what for? He's like, hey bro, hey, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I'm fucking Sam. He's like, oh yeah, come have a chat with me, bro. So I have a chat with him and that, and he goes, fuck, you don't look like you belong in here, boy. You're a little bit skinny, a little bit little, what's going on here? You don't look like a bad fella, And he just started yarning to me, and he goes, oh, look, let me tell you about me. And he says, oh, I was sexually abused as a boy, and this and that, da-da-da-da. Because I turned to the Bible, and this and that, da-da-da-da-da. And now I come to the prison, I try and help people, chat. I was like, yeah, mean. All good. And he goes, does any of that, resonate with you? And I was like, nah, not really. Because I didn't relate to him, I was like, no, this fella's weirdo. And then that was okay. He goes, oh, well, all good. I'm going to come back and see a couple of the bros again next weekend. So I'm just going to come back and see how you are anyway, bro, and I want to get to know you. And I was like, oh, yeah, sweet. So he did that a couple of times, and then I ended up saying to him, look, you must have a crystal ball, bro, because it happened to me. And he's like, yeah, sweet. And he just said, look, I'm not a counsellor or nothing. He said, but, if you want to stay in this pattern you're in, just don't do anything about it. If you want to get out of that pattern, do something about it. So anyway, I told my sister I wanted to have a family meeting, and it didn't happen, but I was been out for about a week, and I told my sister, she come home, I was staying with her at this apartment, and she come home, and I told her, she said, oh, how come you wanted this hui anyway? And I said, fucking blah, 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 and she was hysterical, I can remember that, on her knees crying. And then my mum and dad were informed by her, and I remember I went and spent a night with my mum. She come pick me up and went back to her place up here, actually, in Auckland. Nothing was really even said, it was just, and then I just remember the next day she just dropped me back off at my bro's house, and that was that, nothing, it was kind of like left up to me. But I guess, looking back at it, I was out of control, I was a raging meth addict. I was in and out of jail. I was angry. I was unpredictable. I was all these things, so I was hardly ready for healing, you know what I mean? But I'd taken the first step and told them. But because it's such a hard subject, no one else wanted to bring that back up again, and it's taken all of these years, 20 years later, and now I'm like, well, hold on. Well, in 2019, I'm like, no, hold on, this is too much now. I can't carry this shit around anymore. So they've known a long time, but just sort of waited for me to be ready. But and in some ways that's a good thing, but in a lot of ways I feel that, that night when I wanted to tell everyone, and I told my sister, all I wanted to do was the adults that were responsible then, which was mum and dad, to do what needed to be done. So go to the police, sort it out, like take control, don't just leave it up to me, I thought all I would have to do is disclose, and then the adults around me would take care of it, because you got to remember, I still feel like a little broken boy. Didn't feel like an 18-year-old just fresh out of jail. That wasn't the mentality, especially not talking about that, especially not to the family, So it's a tough one, it's a tough one, bro. Like you want, I would imagine in every scenario it's a very emotional conversation that's had. But then it's the actions that are required after that kōrero, you know, that's the time to shine, you know. And then if you're the caregiver or the parent, you know, then you need to take action, you know, because that loved one that's confided in you, they're not gonna, like, what am I gonna go, oh yes, I was sexually abused by old mate and fucking this happened and that happened, but so anyway, I'm just gonna have a coffee and then I'll shoot down the cop shop and I'll do a report and then I might shoot down and I'll go suss me out a social worker and I'll go suss me out some counselling and yeah, you know, I might catch up with you later, eh? It's not what I'm gonna do, you know what I mean? I'm just passing that information on. I need someone else to sort that out, you know. Well, yeah. So it's a tough one, you know, that whole kōrero with the whānau for the first times, yeah, it's make or break. And I guess I had a lot of resentment built up after the reaction that I got or the reaction I didn't get, I suppose, you know, which wasn't good either. So it just added more baggage to it, you know, it added more layers to the onion that I'm unpeeling now. Yeah.
Wow. So how are you feeling now, Sam? Because
I'm feeling good with it. I'm feeling good with it, bro. Like, you know, one of my parents I'm not in contact with anymore, and I'm okay with that. And the other one, I'm making really good work with that person, with that parent. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, closure's a funny thing. Like, you know, you go out there and you want closure, whether it's from a relationship or from a trauma or whatever, you know, but something you don't realise, and I especially didn't realise either, is that you can't control the content of that closure. So you might go to someone and you might say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, and, you know, you were this and you were that, you know, why didn't you? And they might just turn around and say to you, don't care, or, you know, I have my own reasons, or, you know, like, I'm more important than you, whatever they may say back. You'll be like, oh, I didn't expect that, but there's your closure. Stop caring about them because they don't give a fuck about you. You know, like, yeah.
Shucks. Because I can imagine people who are watching and like and listening, they're like, oh man, if I ask, what's the different reactions or the different scenarios? And if you get a negative one, like you're saying, you can like, oh man, stuff this. Or you get something that's, people have this in their minds, like, oh no, they're going to do it like you're saying.
Yes,
they're gonna take care of it,
bro. You think it's going to be like in the movies.
Carry the movies.
Bro, yeah. You think it's going to be like these interventions in the movies where you sit the family down and, you know, and you, oh, this happened to me. And oh my gosh, you know, okay. And then boom, 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 and everything gets done. Nah, because it's hard for everyone. Yeah. It's hard for everyone, you know, like, it's just an all round fucking hard one. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I have bros that didn't know and did know. And I got bros that are like, fuck, if I knew, bro, fucking, we would have fucking done this and we would have done that, you know. And then I got one of my older sister's partners, you know, he was living at our house in an outside room with my sister at the time, you know, and he's like, fuck, bro, like, if I knew, bro, like, I feel stink. And I'm like, bro, you didn't know, so it doesn't matter, you know, like, it's, you know, but you sort of, all these years later, you realise, hold on, everyone had my fucking back. I just needed to speak up, you know. And again, you know, like, there's, you know, there's going to be that person you can go to. So I didn't really get the result I wanted from my mum and dad, but, you know, I got an amazing result from my sister, you know, like I got, you know, and you know, her ex-partner way back then, you know, when he found out about it just recently, you know, he's like, fuck, I would have fucking, you know, like, you know, and you're like, oh, yeah, you know, like, you know, so you there's someone there, someone's going to receive it. You know, you just got to figure out who that is. You know, you might have a sibling that you really trust, you know, that you click with. And so you go to the sis or the bro, you know, and you can just tell them to start with, and then you can work together and come up with a plan, you know. Whatever, might be an uncle and auntie, might be the bro down the road, or like I said earlier, the bro down the road's mum.
True there, man. So true.
Yeah. A thought came to mind. I just had a quick look as we were talking about closure, and there's something about closure being related to human nature, because we love narratives apparently. So as humans, we love stories and narratives, and this is why all of our movies typically have a happy ending, because we love this clean circle of like life that just starts a certain way and it ends beautifully. And sometimes because of that, when we're faced with the reality, which, as we all know, isn't necessarily a happy ending, sometimes it can be tough dealing with the fact that our closure is sometimes no closure at all. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, it is tough coming to terms with that.
Yep.
But holding on to something like that,
No, you can't hold on
so
to it.
damaging. Yeah.
Nah, you can't. Like I remember my my therapist said to me, she said that this particular parent was on a different plane. Said, "Oh, they're on another plane, Sam. They're not going where you're going." You know, and I was sort of like, "Oh, I don't fuck 'em," you know, this and that, you know, and I was like, "I can't believe this," and why the fuck would they say that? And my counsellor my therapist was just like, "Well, you wanted closure, you got it. You know, you gave everything back to that parent. What they gave you back, you could never have controlled. You had in your mind what you thought they were going to say back, but they didn't say that back. They said something else. You had no control over that. You got your closure. It was the content that wasn't what you expected. So she said you got your that's your end game. You got it. So just close that door. Close that off now. That's done. You know, there it is. Because now now we can work on the content of that closure. Yeah, how do you feel about that? How do you this about that? You know, where do you want to go with that? I'm like, oh, it is what it is. Fuck it. Basically, because it's like, well, wait, no, man, I've been carrying all those thoughts and feelings in it. Saying, well, maybe those thoughts and feelings were kind of right, you know. Maybe that particular person did let me down and didn't have my back and still doesn't, and this has just proven it. So it's okay, you know. It is what it is. We're just onwards and upwards. Just took that one off, right? Now we go to the next issue that's caused from this, you know. Yeah, because it's just not. There's so many other things that affects, you know, like there's just every aspect, bro, every aspect that has this relation into it, you know.
Right, and it seems like it's an ongoing journey, eh? It's just a journey of you kind of, I guess you could say, in a peace for yourself.
That's it,
Sam,
bro.
and just finding just who you are and throughout the whole process. But you know what's really disturbing, Sam, is that no one, like you said earlier on, no one stopped and said, "Hey, bro, is there something wrong?"
Oh, I know, you know.
That's the most disturbing. Like no one's like, "Hey, bro, you're doing what you're reacting all this, you're acting out all this stuff."
Yep. So none of the teachers, So I was in the youth justice system from like 14 to 16. So like, you know, how many boys homes? So like 3 different proper residential boys homes and a couple of different family homes. So I had a social worker that whole time. Not once did my social worker sit me down and go, "Hey bro, how's home life?" Because I mean, imagine if it was mum or dad that were abusing me. They never even fucking asked me that. So for all they know, you know what I mean? Like, I could have been being sexually or physically or emotionally or mentally or whatever abused by my parents. They wouldn't have even known that information because they never even bothered to ask me, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on? How's home life?" You know, they've just taken what mum and dad have said in the room when I'm not there and what mum and dad have said in the room while I'm sitting there quiet. And they go, "Okay, cool, sweet. So that's all the information we need to know about this kid. He's a little prick." You know, instead of going, "Well, fuck," you know, and you would think that at some stage, and the other thing is, you know, you got these staff members in these boys' homes. Well, these people aren't paid. They're, you know, like they're doing a hard job as it is, man. You know, they're all, when I look back now, they were all dads and mums, aunties and uncles, and they're like having to turn the key on these little kids. Like it would have been a hard job. They probably didn't want to reach out, you know. They weren't paid enough to reach out. They probably didn't have the emotional and mental capacity to start reaching out, because if they did, we would have all been going, "Oh, yeah, me next miss, can you give me a hug? Fuck, can you tell me I'm okay? Can you tell me I'm special? Can you tell me you love me? Because fuck yeah, I want to hear that too." You know what I mean? Like they you know, they probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they fucking weren't allowed to reach out. You know what I mean? Wouldn't surprise me. But you know, through that whole youth justice journey, no one asking what's going on. And then even in the within the Department of Corrections, you know, in the adult penal system, you know, like, you know, being a young offender and a recidivist offender, back again. You nail the screws by name. They go, "Now, Chair Troth, what are you doing back so quick, boy? What was it this time?" You know, and you're like, well, you've got this personal relationship with them, but still, like at no stage is anyone sort of like tasked with getting to the bottom of it, you know. And you think with youth offenders, especially if you see them and then they come back, they get out after 14 months. I think 14 months was my first sentence, and I've got 3 years and I served 14 months. I got out and I was back in within like 12 weeks or something. So like you'd be like, "Hell, boy, you just, what are you up to?" But nah, no one asking, "Are you all right? What's going on?" That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. We need to, we you know what I mean? You need to be asking these kids to the point where they're telling you to fuck off. I don't want to talk anymore. Not just not saying anything. Just going, "Yeah, breakfast is at 6. Like, this is at this time. That's where the showers are. Make sure the bros don't come in and give you a hiding tonight when we leave." You know, that was pretty much it, you know.
You would think that, hey, Sam, like besides the point of like you're saying, oh, hey, man, I'm not paid to be a counsellor. I'm just here as correction officer.
Yep.
I'm not paid here to
Yep.
kind of listen to what you have to,
Yep.
what's your issues and so forth. But still, human nature. But
Yeah,
just
you
being
would.
human,
So
humanity.
that's what makes me think. Well, maybe they weren't allowed, especially in the youth justice system. Maybe the staff, maybe there was quite strict rules around what they could and couldn't talk about with the children, or the way they would. I would assume they would be quite strict, because they'd have to be. I mean, I'd be fucking shocked if there weren't processes in place. Really, the more I'm speaking about it right now, because there needs to be procedures in place so that to protect the kids that are in their care. You know what I mean? So there should be rules like, oh, you can't take one kid to some area by your. There must be 2 staff members if there's this many kids, or there must be more than 1 kid if there's only 1 staff member going to this area. You know what I mean? Eh? Because that's where that's where those dangerous opportunities for the staff to be perpetrators themselves would have arisen from. So you would think that there must be some sort of procedures and protocols around what they could and couldn't talk to, and what they could and couldn't do with the children, and possibly maybe, hey, look, trying to counsel the kids wasn't an option because they were paid as a babysitter, or as a caregiver, not as a counselor, or not as a psychologist. So they may not have been allowed to reach out. But then again, you would still think, oh, the nice auntie. Like, I remember there was these 2 in this one boys' home in Tuakau. There was these 2 Māori ladies in the kitchen. Man, they were fucking awesome. And like they used to give us cigarettes and everything out the back. You would think that old aunties you would have thought they'd be allowed to, or they'd be the kind that would want to ask, but even they didn't say, oh, how come? So, hey, mate, there was plenty of opportunities. You finish the dishes and then you'd sneak out the back and have a cigarette with them. You'd be sitting out there for 10 minutes, they'd have an opportunity to ask, say, well, how come you're here, mate? But no, they didn't, so maybe they weren't allowed to.
Yeah, and also at the same time, like regardless of this, maybe your protocols and policies and all that kind of stuff, they're just to safeguard themselves. But you're talking about humanity in terms of like, hey, this young kids here.
How could you not relate to it?
Just a bit of, I need to ask some questions, but you're right. It's quite sad that that no one really picked it up as ask those simple questions. Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is that like it's so common, like, if you're dealing with these in the boys' homes and that, if they haven't been beaten up by their parent, if they haven't been exposed to extreme domestic violence or sexual abuse, like, or just absent parents, like parents that are too busy on the piss or whatever, they're so emotionally abused, then why else would they be there? Do you know what I mean? Like, why else are they, like maybe 1 out of the 32 kids that are there is just a little badass. He's destined to be, a thug, but the rest aren't, so it's like, what the rest of these 31 kids, what the hell are you doing here? Especially the girls, bro. Why are there little girls in care? What's going on for them? You know what I mean? Like, boys will be boys. You always hear that shit, Oh, they've been getting into fights at school. Boys will be boys. Oh, he's bloody smashing something. Boys will be boys. But what about when girls are doing that? Girls aren't meant to do that. So why is anyone asking the little girls what's going on? Yeah, it's a definite flaw in the system there. To have a social worker appointed to me by SIFs, and not once in the, so it would have been from like 12 when I started being like bad, but it wasn't until I was about 13 and a half before I started going to the boys' homes. So I would have had a relationship with this social worker. I can remember her name too, I won't say it. But I would have had a relationship with this lady for close to 4 years. And not once did she ask me what was going on at home. Not once did she ask me what was going on outside of home. Not once did she ask me fucking anything, really.
Yeah. That's alarming. That's alarming, bro. Like, man, come on, man.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. And I bet you there's plenty of the cuzzies out there that are thinking the exact same thing now, that went through the youth justice system and through the been through the criminal justice system, like thinking, fuck yeah, bro, you're right. No one asked me shit, Yeah,
man. And no shade on the good ones out there, but and it could be because they felt probably not equipped, or maybe just
ill-equipped. Yeah, definitely ill-equipped. They'd be like, oh, well, so what if I ask this boy what's wrong, and he tells me that, oh, his dad beats his mum up, and then he beats me up, and this and that, and there's alcohol, and there's, what am I going to do about that? What are my abilities? I've got no abilities. I've got no nothing. So all I'm going to do is just comfort this child in this moment, which probably would have been better than not asking, but still, Yeah,
bro. So true, man.
And it's just making me reflect on you know, everyone knows someone who's gone through. I mean, I just assume that based on my own life, but I just think about the times, the conversations that I should have had, could have had, and for whatever reason, whether it be awkwardness or shame or whatever it is, not having those conversations now. And I know I'm kind of glad that I'm having this conversation now, because life, as you as you put it, sort of puts you in situations where you can take learning and apply it. And so it's just made me think about the conversations I will have as a result of this, and being able to check in. There's a family member close to me who's gone through some things, and because I didn't know what it was like, and I didn't want to bring this trauma and have them talk about it and then I not know how to deal with it. That was kind of what stopped me from wanting to ask if they're okay, and finding ways to be of use and not just be like a shallow, you're good. Yeah. Even though I know I can clearly see you're not. But I've always just hesitated to go like, do I push further? Do I wait back? Do I let them come to me? Like,
it's a hard one around that, you know, like, and I personally think you push forward, you know, like you pull them to the side, you know, like they might, you know, like you pull them to the side, bro, and you just create that opportunity where it's, oh, come on, cuz we got to get a feed, or fucking break his hand with this for a second out the back, and then you just literally you just break it down and you say, bro, like I know, like I'm here, I want to hear it, bro. If you want to tell it, I'm here, you know, because we're all screaming out inside to tell our story, bro, because it makes it feel better, you know. So if you can let them know that, you know, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing, you know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Bro, hard out, Sam, because I was quite excited to kind of catch up and have the kōrero brother, and so just on just some face to face, like, man, it needs to be spoken, eh?
It's like it's our skeleton in the closet, bro. It actually is. Like, it actually is. Like when you look at statistics relating back to suicide, so on the Male Survivors Aotearoa website, there's a statistic there around youth suicide, so particularly under 14s. So they're saying around 90% of under 14s that suicide have been sexually abused. Now, I did a post the other day, and with the July 2019 to June 2020, we had 6 under 14s commit suicide. So with that, applying that 90%, we're talking about 5 of those kids were sexually abused. So you know, that's again, that's huge. It's huge. You know, we've got to do better, bro. Like, we actually have to do better. Like, if we're going to talk about things like sexuality, you know, and we're going to have these conversations with our teenagers, you know, our year 9, year 10, year 11 kids at college, if we're gonna let you know, if we're gonna make that a normality, which is cool, I'm all for that, bro. Like, that's awesome. Let's be inclusive, whether you however you identify, whatever your sexuality as a young person, you know. Let's make it easier for those confused children to figure out who they are and what they're gonna be. That's awesome. But let's have some other real corridors too, eh? Yeah. Let's talk about other shit. Let's talk about domestic violence. Let's talk about sexual abuse. Let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about, you know, let's talk about suicide. Let's talk about all of these things that we need to talk about with our children. Because otherwise, we look at all of us, we're all in middle age, and we're like, oh yeah, we need to start talking about this shit, bro. No one was talking about this when we were young, man.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
You know what I mean, bro? Like, I'm sure that, you know, like, well, I hope that there's some younger people listening to this podcast, bro, and they'll go, fuck yeah, I need to reach out. And that's the whole point, you know. It's that we're not going to make a generational change until we start speaking to the youth, and still we start making that change, you know. And so to do that, it needs to be with the youth. It's no time, you know, like, we can all talk amongst ourselves as you know, middle-aged and above men, but if we're not talking to the young fellas, well, all our kōrero is going to die out in 25 years, and they're going to be stuck with the same fucking problems we had.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean, bro?
Yeah.
It's the only way. It's the only way to create a generational change. It's just talk to the kids, you know. And we don't need to pussyfoot around anymore, you know. Like I say, I'm using the example a few times of the, you know, of like the Rainbow Day and things like that, and the rainbow gender sexuality and stuff at school, being more acceptable and mainstream and all that. Because if we can talk about that, we can talk about anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're happy to talk about that to our children, then let's talk about everything and anything else in between. Because you know what I mean? Like that's a pretty big kōrero to be having with kids, sexuality. Talking, are you gay? Are you bi? Are you lesbian? Are you transgender? Are you transsexual? Are you this? There's a lot of different branches to it, And I guess there's people that identify as all of them, and that's cool. But if we're going to have those talks, and they've some pretty hard out talks. Okay, so you were born as a boy, but you feel you're a girl. That's a hardcore kōrero to have, bro. That's full on. Yeah. So if we can have that, surely we can have a conversation that is around preventing harm. Do you know what I mean? And preventing preventing harm from continuing. You know what I mean? We've got to have those kōreros, bro.
Yeah,
it's simple, eh?
I agree, you're right. Because even now that there's this programs and people in the schools who are talking about having sex, or all the genitalia and all that kind of stuff. And so, if you're talking about sexual abuse, hey, why not? We need to have this kōrero.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, if we're going to talk about things like consent and sexuality, fucking A, we can have the conversation about sexual abuse. You know what I mean? Absolutely we can. And then if we're doing that, then we just like if you think about the economical savings, if you remove your heart from it and you think about it as from a national point of view, we're going to save the money. We're going to save the government money. We're going to save the economy money. We're going to have less addicts. We're going to have less domestic violence. We're going to have less criminals. We're going to have more woke and more aware of men aware of themselves and how to control themselves. We're going to have more constructive members of society, because instead of us locking up these men and then treating them for their alcohol or their drug addictions and their bad behaviours in their relationships for the next 25 years and then them coming right, we're going to have one kōrero with them when they're 14, 15, 16. We're going to deal with that core issue that they got there, that childhood trauma. They're going to move on to have a beautiful life. So the small amount of time and money that we invest, the tiny amount of money we invest, because we're talking to a whole school, we're not going one-on-one, we're talking of 800 kids at a time, very small cost, very time efficient, very cost effective way to do it. And then we're getting the ones coming forward, and then we're sorting them out. Oh man, we're making a huge change and saving some serious dollars. I know that what I would have cost the government would have been ridiculous. With all my imprisonment, boys' homes, the time that the amount of times I spent in the courtroom, so it's a very you think about how many lawyers are in there and judges, and everyone's getting big bucks. It's cost a lot of money to run a courtroom for 10 minutes. When you've spent hours and hours and hours in trials and all the rest of it, bro, you cost them hundreds of thousands in legal fees, and the free lawyer that's standing there for me that the government is paying for, plus the criminal offending that I've done and the financial effect on the victims or whatever, and then the cost of locking me up and feeding me, driving me out to the prison and locking me up there, and all of that, bro. All of that, and then the cost of having me on probation and me having to go to this probation service every week, and the cost of chasing me around the country when I go on the run again. It just keeps going. Everything becomes a huge cost where we could just spend a little bit of money at the start and have a talk to all our kids. It's easy, easy.
I don't, man.
Just reminds you of that saying that prevention is always better than cure.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely, and that's why it's like, waiting for people to come forward is almost like putting a sticky plaster on a laceration, bro. Like they're bleeding out of the jugular, and we're going, hold on, bro, I'll just chuck that little plaster. Hold on, I'll grab two. I'll grab two, cuz I'll grab two. Yeah, I've got a little bit of tape here. I'll put that around there too. He should be good for a bit. Let's go to them before they cut themselves. Let's take the fight to the front line instead of waiting. Like I quite often say, there's no point in being in an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. What's the point in that? Let's climb up the fucking thing and stop people from jumping. Or put a safety barrier up there, bro, so they don't fall. Whatever's happening, there's something going wrong at the top of the cliff. Why are these fellas landing down there next to the ambulance? Get up there and suss it out.
It's too late, man.
Yeah, bro.
Man, that's wicked. It's for context, I'm a primary school teacher. I teach at intermediate 7 and 8, and I recently had a conversation that was to do with the rainbow community, and and it's something I'm not too familiar with in my personal life. But I thought it was a great opportunity to learn and to find out what I can do to help support some of my students. And there was a quote that was given by a member of staff at a recent assembly, and they talked about how by the time these students get to year 8, that's something like just under $100,000 has been invested into their education. And just as you were talking, it just made me think about, assume it's double that to get to year 13 at the end of college and high school. That's still far less being spent compared to, like you mentioned, youth are not going through the ringer and dropping out of school and getting into all sorts of things because they've gone through this traumatic experience, because we've avoided talking about it. When we very easily could have talked about it and acknowledged its existence. And I feel like that's, like you've mentioned before, that's half the problem. It's just like, if we just close our eyes to it, it doesn't exist. And that's half the reason we end up where we're at in terms of, look at the statistics.
We ignore it and it carries on and carries on. You're just like, oh shit, no, we'll just ignore that. Just get the rug's so big, everyone's falling over it. You know what I mean? Like, even the amount of shit that's been swept under it, it's no good, And the other thing is, like, where else are you going to get such a high concentration of ears? Like, where else are you going to get 6, 8, 1,200 kids or 1,200 sets of ears sitting there listening? You're not. You're literally not, bro, unless you're unless it's a concert or a sports event. Where else are you going to have an audience that big? Where? Nowhere, other than a school. Where else? Well, maybe at a church. Maybe at the church you might get an audience that big. Where else? Nowhere. So why, you know what I mean? Like, so again, with that cost effectiveness, cheap as chips to go in there, like cheaper by the dozen, well, they're cheaper by the hundreds, do one fella go in there, have a yarn, done, and then obviously, the follow up from that is, you're going to get children coming forward, you're going to open a can of worms, so you be ready for that, but ultimately just going in and talking to them, and you're reaching the maximum amount of people for the minimum amount of effort.
And the lives you're saving as well.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that the government kind of listens, or hopefully someone in the government is watching this and think, man, this is true. Well, let's just hope that
Auntie Marama is. I know she is. Yeah. Auntie Marama. She's
Marama,
all over
if you're listening, please.
I've met with her, and we message often, and she's on. She's awesome. Yeah, she's real good, and she knows it, and we had a really good kōrero. I met her at Parliament, and we had a really good kōrero. She's choice. Yeah. Oh. So I mean, it's just it comes down to us though, in the community. We've really got to push this. We can't just sit back and go, the government's not doing good enough. The government aren't doing anything. We've actually got to take that next step and go, well, fuck it. You know what? Let's do it ourselves. Let's start, and it can start without any help at the marae. It can start with any help in your home. It can start without any help in your workplace. You know what I mean? Like, those places, it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't even, you had to go to work today anyway. So you're sitting in the smoker room, and instead of 8 of you all staring at your screens for half an hour, how about one of you goes, bro, brothers, have you checked this out of a fella out? He's walking up New Zealand, bro, blah, 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 blah. Get the conversation started. When you're at home and you're having a feed and the kids are there, Christmas time at the moment, heaps of fun around. Have the conversation. It's free. It's free, man. Have the kōrero and sort it out, We don't even need to be in the schools, but obviously we want to be, and that's where I'm aiming to be. But, cool. We can start anywhere, bro, at your sports club. You get prize giving for sports club, just switch it right up. And no cave, no, we're on to...
I'm going to talk about something else.
We're going to talk about something else. That's great. Okay, so the sixth grade rugby players, awesome work, kids. Awesome work. Yeah, we've finished the rugby grade now, so we're going to talk about this. Nah, but you know what I mean, though, maybe not a junior rugby, but... Hey, like it's just, having that conversation and if like my whole theory about going to the schools is that, so I might not inspire someone to want to talk to me. They might go, I don't really relate to this fella, which I can understand because I never related to that, like I didn't relate to that pastor and that and sort of things. And, but if they're sitting there next to their bros and their bros is like, fuck, that's pretty ratchet. What happened to this fella, and bro, he's got a pretty, mean, look at his hikoi that he did, and and they're not like, they're not being negative about my shit, the bro might go, fuck, on the way home today, I'm going to tell the bro, because he's not judging that guy. He's not laughing at him. He's not elbowing me going, this fella's been diddled or whatever. He's listening to him and he's elbowing me going, fuck, ratchet, bro, ratchet. So he's showing empathy for that fella. So I reckon I can tell him now. I can tell my bro, because my bro's not going to laugh at me. He's not going to think I'm crazy or gay or anything like that. He's gonna get it. So, I think you'd create that reaching out amongst their peers. You know what I mean? They'd be looking to their peers for support, because their peers, and even it might not be the bros, but the chickie bros might be there, the sisters might be there, and girls are never gonna. They're gonna be like, whoa, that'll blow the girls away. So, the girls might be like, oh, that's ratchet. Oh, and then they might talk about it on the way home, and the bro might be like, oh, I might message the sis later and tell her, hey, fuck, that's happening to me, or that's happening to me, because she's showing heart, she's showing compassion. She thinks, oh, this guy that spoke at school today, man, that was out of it. What a poor fella, fuck, living his life, or whatever, So, if you can, they might not want to come out to me, but they might want to talk to their peers, that sort of just, again, it just creates the conversation, and it makes them be able to sort of go, oh yeah, how's the bro reacting to this? Oh, the bro's reacting sweet as to that. Because that was one of my biggest fears. I don't want to tell my mates. Like, I told my best bro when we were like 15, but we've done some heavy shit together anyway. So like, it was pretty standard compared to the other naughty stuff we used to get up to, bro. It was, yeah. But like, I told him then, and he's still my best bro to the day, and I've told other bros as well, like growing up. But then there was bros that I didn't want to tell, you know what I mean? And I wanted to tell them, but then I'm like, oh, fuck, I reckon this fellow act like a clown, bro, or he might laugh about it behind my back, or I don't want to give him something, like, so it's all about, again, like, sort of, if the conversation is raised amongst your peers and you can see how your peers react to it, you know what I mean? It's a bit like you could bring someone's name up in front of a group of people and be like, oh, what do you reckon about, oh, bloody such and such? Oh, and they might go, oh, yeah, he's this or he's that. And you, oh, yeah, well, actually, yeah, that's what I think too. Or like you can just sort of, you get a sort of a feel for, like I said earlier, your person, and that might show them that who their person is amongst their peers, This is my bro that I can go to about this, because he was really intrigued by this fella on stage today. He was real empathetic to him. So he will be to me too. So that's the person I need to reach out to, not mum and dad, not auntie and uncle, not my brother, but my bro here at school, I'm going to tell him first,
Yeah, mean. Bro, hey, Sam, just wondering if you can look straight in the camera, and because there may be guys listening and watching, and there may be someone who's listening and watching at the same time, like, just thinking, man, I need to tell someone. But, it could be because of many things, because of fear, shame, all that kind of stuff, But if you could just kind of give them some word of advice or encouragement, or just empower them, like,
bro,
what would you say?
It's easy. It's easy. You've just got to let go of the fear, and you've just got to let it all out. There's no shame in crying. There's no shame in being vulnerable. There's no shame in being victimized. You did nothing wrong. You did absolutely nothing wrong. You're an innocent small person, small child, young man, whatever. You did nothing wrong. You didn't want what happened to you. It happened to you. You need to give that shame back. It's not yours. You're carrying around all this shit with you. The weight's too heavy. You need to give it back. Who cares about the ramifications? Because at the end of the day, you need to look after number one, and number one is you. So if you're carrying this bullshit around, get rid of it. Fuck it off. It's no good. It's going to keep affecting you. You're going to keep hitting brick walls. You're never going to get past it. So you may as well address it now, because you don't want to be addressing it when you're 85, sitting in a room full of young fellas trying to address it, because then you'll feel real awkward. You got to do it now. You got to do it now, man. It's easy. Find your person and reach out. It's simple. And if you have no one, I'm on social media. Reach out to me. I got your back, 100%.
Man, bro, yep. Awesome. Jay, any last questions or words?
One question came to mind. And I suppose, I don't know, I'm just going to ask it how it's formed in my mind. But was there ever a time where, just in order to try and deal with it, your mind almost like just tried to almost play tricks on yourself? Coping mechanisms, I just think. Were there ever times where you almost started to gaslight yourself because you just didn't want to believe that what's happened has happened?
Yeah, and that's a lot of the drugs, and the violence is just you don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit that, man. It's a hard one, but so you just try and push it down as far as down as you can, and drugs and alcohol do a really good job of that for a little bit. yeah, like even when it was happening, you know it's not right. You know it's not normal. You just go into that fight or flight mode. You just switch off. You go to somewhere else. You're not there. You know, spiritually, you leave your body. You're not. You know, you hear females talking about it. You know, and they might be raped, and they say they just go somewhere else. You know, especially if it's from a partner. You know, forcing them to give it up, whatever. They go somewhere else, and that's basically what you do. Is you go to another place, and yeah, and then and it becomes it just becomes something like you almost want to forget it yourself. You know what I mean? So you're like, it does pop in, if it pops in your head, and you're like, no, fuck, get out, and it's more drugs, more alcohol, more violence, more whatever. You know, like, nah, that's not me. I'm not thinking about that. Like, and you go externally, and you try and dumb that out by external actions, by, you know, drugs and alcohol and shit like that, or trying to be a bad fellow or violent fellow or whatever it may be, you know, to sort of almost say to yourself, like, you know, when it's not what you need to be doing at all, eh? Oh. So it's Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's all good, bro. Other than that, I just wanted to acknowledge you for just the courage and like shedding light on this, because I never heard anybody else talk about it the way you've been talking about it, and I just think with you keeping your finger on the pulse and the stats the way they are, it's inevitable. It's only a moment of time before all eyes are on this, and it's just cool to know that, hey, there's someone there that's saying, hey, I'm here.
Yep.
So yeah, I just want to tautoko your work and just brother, appreciate your mahi, man. Awesome. Big
thank
ups.
you, brother. Thank you.
All good.
Bro, likewise, bro. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. I think it's massive what you're doing, and I love the fact that you're just doing it. You just said, I'm not waiting for any funding, not waiting for all that kind of stuff and support. I'm just going to get up and do it, because you need someone in that kind of capacity to say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And for you to do that and take the courage and the muster up the courage to say, you know what, I'm just going to put myself out there regardless of what people are going to say. And you obviously got to get some negative feedback. And
you always get that.
You always get that. But you standing up and for what you believe in and the passion behind it, bro, it speaks volumes. And so, brother, too much, bro. Too much.
Thank you, bro.
All the best of the endeavours for the new year. But otherwise, bro, man, we're just proud of what you're doing, what you've achieved thus far. But everyone that comes on, bro, we always give them a gift.
Okay.
And say, bro, we always do a bit of a caricature or a sketch and say, this is for you, my brother.
Yeah. Man,
from the Mandate team.
Yeah,
Bless
me, my bro. Thank you very much.
You, man. No,
that's
thank
choice,
you,
bro. Mean.
But Sam, is there anyone you can think of that it would be ideal to come on? And do you think, we come to have a nice korero with the boys?
Yeah, I've got one fellow in mind. I'm just still waiting to hear back whether he's keen or not. But I can tell you a little bit about him, bro. He's an ex-gang member. He's a survivor of sexual abuse, survivor of domestic trauma, and he's now sort of a motivational speaker, a personal trainer, and fuck, I reckon he'd rock the show, cuz. But I'm just waiting for the bro to say whether or not, so I can't say anymore.
Keep us in suspense.
Yes, I'll keep you in suspense. Feel like Shortland Street, cuz. You gotta wait till next year now.
Too much, bro. No, we really appreciate it, bro. But Ed, please do a bit of a plug-in for the hikoi and how people can support you.
Yeah, so it's the Road to Healing Aotearoa. I'm on social media on Facebook and Instagram, but I mainly use Instagram. So if you do have Instagram, just add me on that. We're gonna start TikTok next year so that we can reach a bit of a younger audience. We're gonna have a website next year, which will be the Road to Healing Aotearoa. And we're going to start we've got a few schools to go to next year, so we've got a lot happening next year, so please do give us a follow and bear with me through the sort of start of January, because there won't be much happening up on the page, probably a few Kai posts, and that's about it. And then we'll be back into the action, and then and we're going to be doing another hikoi in October next year, which will be from side to side of the north, so will be exciting. So give us a follow, tune in, and like I said earlier, if anyone's out there that wants to reach out, like, I'm here. It's simple as that, I have I'm in touch with male support services in every region in New Zealand. I got phone numbers for every region, so you can ring me or you can message me, DM me, and I'll be able to give you the name and phone number of someone that's going to get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with them, and give you free peer support, free ACC counselling, free whatever you need. It's all free, and it's all there ready and waiting. So please don't feel like reaching out is going to be the only thing you can do with me, because I can put you in the right place, and I can get you the care and the help that you need. And it's also it's also survivor based. So 90 probably 98% of the people that you'll be dealing with in these regions are survivors themselves. So they've already walked in your shoes. So they're not someone with a piece of paper on the wall that's trying to tell you how to live your life. They've already done it. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Sam. Appreciated your time. But please support the brother. Please support his mahi and the work that he's doing. And once again, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as usual, Jay,
refine,
unlock,
and take charge.
Mandate.